Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Brianna Hughes and I'm a food scientist. And my career started out in my mom's bakery where I learned to make bread, and I actually did a science fair project on the chemistry of bread baking. So that was really my first exposure, asking those questions like, what is it that makes dough form? How does it rise? How does it bake in the oven and turn into bread? Why does it brown? And so I asked all those questions, and I thought I wanted to be a chemist. So I went to college for chemistry, and my freshman advisor said, what about food science? And I said, what about food science? And that was really where it started. I ended up getting a bachelor's degree in food science, and then my first career was in the dairy industry, where I did a lot of microbiology. I plated a lot of milk, spent a lot of time looking at milk under microscopes, and even tasting spoiled milk, which, let me tell you, once you've done that professionally, there is no going back. I also was lucky and got to be a field technician too, which meant I got to drive all over the state of Maine visiting dairy farmers. And I drove everywhere from the southern tip of Maine all the way up to the Canadian border, spending time at farms, troubleshooting, checking issues they might be having, visiting their barns, equipment, and of course the cows, which was one of my favorite parts. And I also got to do some product development there, which was my first exposure to that. And what I did with that was we had to make a new chocolate milk. So I got to sample lots of different cocos and figure out which cocoa to use in the milk, how much to add, what the exact right flavor profile should be. And then the challenging part of how do you keep it in suspension? So if you make chocolate milk at home, you stir it and it settles out over time, and people don't want that in the grocery store. So those are all kind of things that you answer as a food scientist. Lots of questions. How do you pump something through a pipe? How do you pasteurize it, make it safe to eat or last for a certain amount of time or have a certain nutritional profile? Why do apples turn brown when you cut them open but an orange doesn't? Those are all the kind of questions that food scientists ask and deliver answers to. And one of the things that I love the best about food science is it's a foundational science, but it cross-cuts so many different elements of science, whether it's engineering, whether it's sensory science, packaging science, chemistry, microbiology, straight up biology. There's all these different elements that you get to bring together, as well as non-STEM fields like marketing, sales, finance, business. I love all of that, and getting to work with so many different people where you get to communicate your science and bring it to life in a way that actually ends up on someone's plate. And you can solve real world problems because most food companies are in some way or another vertically integrated, or their supply chains are, where you're actually taking things, whether it's from the ground or the water or something, and you're actually transforming it and shepherding it through a supply chain and a process to bring it to people who need it. And I love that. Food's applicable to everybody. Everyone eats and everyone knows food on some level. So it's a field that I really enjoy and I get a lot out of. So from the dairy, I loved that chocolate milk project and I knew I wanted to do more of that. So I went to grad school. I got my master's and my PhD in food science. I went to Ocean Spray Cranberries from there, where I worked in product development and led one of their innovation teams, coming up with all kinds of new juices. Two of my launches were cran pineapple and pink cranberry, so you can go out and try those if you want and see some real life food science examples on shelf. Did a lot of packaging projects, shelf life projects, and some really neat other projects that came up that were pretty novel, and I loved that. I loved that a lot. From there, I went to the Town Dock, which is where I am now. I've been there about 3 years. It's a seafood company in Narragansett, Rhode Island, and I'm their Vice President of Operations, Supply Chain, and Quality. And what that means is I really just have my hands in everything. I have a really big team that works for me, and we cover everything from catch to consumer. So as soon as the calamari comes out of the water, all the way through to when it ends up with our chefs and consumers in their either home kitchens or restaurants. And we do everything from shelf life, quality, sourcing. We source from all over the world and we sell our calamari all over the world. So part of my job is working with governments. I work a lot with ports and supply chains. I still do a lot of product development with chefs on custom projects. And I also get to do research. So I partner with universities, I write grants, I sponsor students, whether they're culinary students from Johnson & Wales, or master's or PhD students that are doing seafood research. So I love that part of my job and doing grant writing and projects to further scientific research in food science in seafood. So those are all different things that I do. Again, food science really cross-cuts a lot of different disciplines, and that's one of my favorite parts about it. Advice I would give to anyone who wants to go into food science or STEM in general, or have a career like mine, is stay curious and say yes. There are so many opportunities that will come up that you can't possibly anticipate, and some of them will push you out of your comfort zone. And say yes to those. There's just so much out there, and it's a great opportunity to grow and learn and see how opportunities lead to one another, because you can't anticipate. So that would be my advice, is stay curious and say yes. So thank you for having me, and I hope that helped answer some questions about my career and food science.